Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Dream Life Loading podcast. I'm Skye.
I'm Susan. How are you today, Skye?
I'm doing good, Susan. I'm feeling really refreshed and really excited about the week ahead. I'm sure we might talk about it in this episode, if not, definitely next week, but just a lot of exciting things coming, and it's got me in a very good headspace. How about you?
Yes, I agree. I was actually pretty tired this morning. We did a lot of socializing, either inadvertently or just like there were people here all the time, which is great. Like we love having a full house. So it's good. But this morning it was a struggle to get out of bed. Mondays are usually my vlogging days. And I was like, I don't have it in me. Like I didn't even change. But you know what? I'm in a really good mood and I've been super productive this morning. So I cannot complain.
That's the best way to get into the Monday mood is to just really dive into work and just feel productive.
Absolutely. And I think a big part of why I'm in a good mood is because of actually what our episode topic today is, which is protecting your peace. And I used a lot of these like tactics that we're going to talk about this morning on myself from myself. So I'm really excited to get into this. We just dive into our lists and see where this
100%.
goes.
Yes.
My first thing is forgiveness. And that was like, I think overarching, like if I had to pick like the number one thing for protecting your peace, for me, it's forgiveness because I'm someone who used to carry like, I used to carry so much weight of everything. I would have fake arguments in my head. I would be reliving situations over and over again, being like, I wish I would have said this, I wish I would have done that. Um, and then just like hatred. Like I used to hold literal hate in my heart to the point where I would be in a room with someone or someone would bring someone's name up and my whole body would just fill with rage. Like my blood would boil and I was just so angry. And I felt like that a good amount, like 2020, I feel like that whole year I was just mad about everything. And I think there was a lot of things going on. However, I needed to learn how to forgive others so that I could forgive myself. Because, like, in those situations, if I'm arguing with someone in my head, then I am not forgiving myself for how I acted in that scenario. Because obviously, I wish I would have done something different. So learning how to forgive others is almost like training wheels for learning to how to forgive yourself. And that has just changed my perspective on everything. Like I went through a friend breakup last year and forgiveness quite literally is what kind of like glued me back together and
Yeah.
just being okay. I wrote a whole blog on it, but being able to just appreciate the friendship for what it was and then to move on and like set new expectations for how you treat your friends and how your friends treat you, like life changing,
Mhm.
literally life changing. So
Yeah.
forgiveness is my number one, and I will step down from my soapbox now.
I think forgiveness is a great place to start. It is interesting though, because I would say the opposite. I would say that I had to forgive myself before I could start to forgive others. I think forgiveness, I look at is very similar to self-love, where like if you're going to learn to love yourself, you have to forgive in my opinion, you have to forgive yourself for the guilt you're holding on to, for mistakes you've made in the past, whatever, all of it, you have to forgive yourself to love yourself. So I did a lot of that in 2020. And I think it was the perfect, I would never say that I was grateful for the pandemic, but having those moments where we weren't able to socialize and we were forced to move home and move back in with our families, whatever the situation for you was, for me, it really forced me to take that time to forgive myself and learn to love myself. And so, yeah, I would say it was kind of the opposite for me. I had to forgive myself. And then, like, I remember there was like a huge turning point for me. It was like, why am I still holding on to this hatred? And I couldn't let
And
anything go. Yeah, I was being really, really stubborn. And it was finally like, well, I'm not mad at myself anymore. So why would I be mad at them? And it was like, well, it really took months and months and months for me to forgive myself to then begin to be like realize that I was going to be okay to forgive those people and forgive the
yeah,
situations.
I think another part of it was 2020 was when I got hurt. And I was like, for a good 11 months at least, it was for me, I was like, poor me. Like, my
Yep.
foot hurts, poor me. And like, yes, there is some sympathy in there because it was a really crappy situation.
Yes.
However, I was like, so am I just going to spend my whole life like this? And I think that's when it kind of like registered for me, like, no, this is not okay. You can't just sit here and victimize yourself. Like, yes, something crappy happened to you, but now it's how we respond to it and
Yeah.
how we're going to move forward. And so it's interesting that we're opposites for this, because I think I didn't know how to forgive. So like trying it, not like trial and error on other people, but like for me, it was almost like, well, let's see how this goes, and then we'll try it on me,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. I think I was holding, it was kind of ironic. I had a situation happen in college right before we got sent home, which I really believe happened for a reason because it gave me the space that I really needed. And I was at a point where I felt like I was to blame completely and I was being really, really hard on myself. So I think I had to kind of like take that time to realize like, yes, you can not place blame on other people if it's not their fault, but you don't have to then place the blame on yourself. And so that was kind of like huge for me, which I think it was similar learning experiences, just kind of went about in different orders.
Coming off of that, the next thing I had on my list was disengaging from drama, um, which is just like we were talking about this, we were watching Selling Sunsets, and we were like, we love drama that does not involve us. Because like I don't even like drama within my town. I live in a small town, so like you hear things whether you want to or not. And I don't want any part of it. And I feel like that was just such a turning point, and being able to identify that. And I think when you get out of elementary school, you get out of college, and you're like, okay, like drama doesn't really exist. Oh no, it exists. It's like the green-eyed monster. Um, Actually, fun little backstory about me. I was a very good student as a child, well, and in college, but I got in trouble once at school for being the messenger. And I don't even understand, like the whole thing was kind of messed up, but they were really cracking down at this point in my life. And up until literally this year, I would like get knots in my stomach thinking about it. Like I got written up for drama, and it was just like, oh, like it made my stomach curdle. So I've always kind of tried to avoid it, but more so now, like I don't even want to entertain a conversation about someone that I know if it's not in a positive or like a, oh, look at what they're doing. Anything out of that realm, I'm like, no, I don't want part of it.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I was really, really bad about drama in elementary, middle, high school, and even I guess parts of college for sure. And I think COVID really was that turning point for me. But I also think you hit that age where I was 20 into 21 during the beginning of COVID. So that it was kind of the point where it was like you kind of mature out of it. But then like we're watching Selling Sunset and it's like, oh my God, like some people do not mature out of this. And I think I'm really grateful that I had that turning point where I was like, I can't live like this anymore. Cause I I used to be so bad about it and it was just really hard not to get sucked in for me. And now I feel the same way. It's like I want nothing to do with it, but it's so hard to break the habit if you are used to starting a conversation by talking about someone else because it is a really easy way, I think especially for girls. If you're making new friends, it's really easy to just immediately say like, "Oh, did you hear this?" or "Did you?" And it's an easy way to try and relate to people and it can be killer. It really can be. So it's hard to break that habit, but if you do it, you realize that I realized at least my stress levels were down, my friendships were better, my relationships were better, and I wasn't spending so much time on things that did not matter. I feel like with the drama, you get sucked into this headspace that's so negative and so hurtful. And honestly, watching Selling Sunset, I was like, oh my God, I used to be like this, where I was so mean to myself, which meant I was then mean to other people. And it was like, and I had to kind of learn to not hold on to that guilt where it was like, I can't believe I used to be like this. And it's like, no, it's fine. We all have mistakes. We all learn and grow. And it's like, I'm really grateful that I'm not like this. The people on Selling Sunset are fantastic and we love that show. But it was like, oh my God, I'm so grateful I don't live like this because it's so toxic.
The way people talk about other people or the conversations you're having is a really good way to like just listen, like for the next week, listen to the conversations that you're either partaking in or listening to, and it's really easy to like dwindle down your circle. And I think you're the one who had said it to me. I hadn't thought about the concepts of drama or gossip in years until you were reading The Happiness Project and you're like, I'm done gossiping. And I was like, gossiping? Like, what are you? And I was like, what do you mean? And so then I like was thinking about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like you're so right. And since you had brought it up, I started like kind of checking in, like
Yeah.
being aware and taking inventory of like, what I was listening to, what I was saying.
Mhm.
And then once I stopped that, I will say my friends group has shifted considerably because I just don't entertain it.
Yep.
Or if I, and there are some situations where it's like you feel the pressure to either contribute in some way or like they directly ask you. And it's really hard, even as an adult, it's hard to avoid that. And sometimes I'll admit, like sometimes I still get sucked into it. I'm not clean of
Yep.
the gossiping sin, if you will. Um, but definitely being more aware of it and then just being like, just listen. If they're saying it about someone else, they're saying it about you to someone
Yep.
else.
Yep. Yeah, it's really hard not to. Like you said, like I definitely get stuck sucked in too. And with moving around now and trying to create new friends and new relationships, it can be really hard because like with friends I've had for a long time, if they start into something and I'm like, this doesn't like, why are we talking about this? Like, this literally doesn't matter. I'm fine doing that. But if I'm talking to a new friend and they're talking about someone in our friend group or someone that has to do with something, it's hard to say, like, oh, I don't want to know this because it's gossip. Because it's like, well, I don't know anybody here and I want, and it's like I don't want to know the drama necessarily, but it's hard to like cut off a new friend and be like, "Oh, I don't want to know that because it's drama." And then you might lose a friend, but do you want that friend? It's a very tough balance like you said in adult life, especially I think because not everyone is gossiping, but it's harder to make friends and it's tough. It's really tough, but I think to kind of full circle this, cutting off gossip is like the number one way to protect your peace.
Yes, I could not agree more. The other thing that it kind of goes with this is, and I've been kind of saying this to myself lately, is silence is your best armor.
Mhm.
Um, just being aware of who you disclose information to is like very, very important. But I've been using this a lot when there's a lot of factors that went into this decision for me. But when I'm in a very public place, like let's say the gym, for instance, I'm not talking a whole lot about what's going on in my life anymore. Like I said, a multitude of factors that go into that.
Mhm.
But I've just found that just focus on whatever you're doing in that moment. So if I'm at the gym, I'm at the gym. If I'm at the grocery store and I run into someone I know, which happens a lot in this town, politely engage in the small talk, but I'm not going into details. I'm not telling, Linda my whole life story
Yep.
in aisle 4 because you don't know who else is around. And it's just, I don't know. Silence has been my go-to lately. And then you do have some scenarios where silence draws attention. People are like, well, why are you being quiet? Or like, what's wrong? And I'm like, nothing's wrong. I'm literally just focusing on myself.
Yep.
And that can go into gossiping. It's kind of a gray area because if you're silent and just listening to it, you'd be a bystander, but like the ins and outs of it are different. But when in doubt, if you aren't comfortable enough to shut it down,
Yep.
you can not partake, and silence can be an option.
Yep. And it is sometimes that works where if you're in a group and a bunch of people are talking about someone or some situation and you don't want to be a part of it and you're not comfortable shutting it down, because I understand that that can be like not always
That's
the right thing
really
to do. Yeah. So
yep.
even just by not contributing, the conversation is going to slowly fizzle out if not everyone is participating in this like awful gossip circle. So you're right, silence is a really easy way to shut it down without like stirring up more gossip, and stirring up more conflict.
That goes for negativity too.
Mhm.
I have a friend very close to me, collectively negative. I think it's just the space she's in right now. But when a rant starts and it's just like poor me, or negative, 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 I just stop. I
Mhm.
don't engage. I don't fuel it because if I were to respond with anything other than like you're being negative right now, it's like fuel on a fire and it just ignites it, and then you're gonna hear about it longer and longer and longer.
Mhm.
So that's where I've also been using silence as a tool, more or less.
Yeah, I think the negativity, that's a really important piece of protecting your peace as well, is that even if there's people in your life that, whether they're family or however they're connected to you, where you feel like you are stuck with this person being in your life, because it's not always as easy as just cutting them off and moving on, learning to just be silent and not engage in that toxic behavior because negativity can really bring you down. And if you're the person that's just constantly spewing negativity, you are putting that off on other people. And that's like literally the worst with trying to protect your peace. So I think if someone's coming at you, like Susan said, yeah, just keep your mouth shut and at least it won't come off on you.
Right. And I think the other thing that goes back to this, which is like protecting your peace and negativity, and like it all kind of wraps up, is if you were going to protect your peace from others, you have to protect it from yourself too.
Mhm.
So, like, I woke up today and I was tired. And instead of like bitching and complaining that I was tired, I was like, I'm going to have a good day. I'm tired now, but pre-workout will kick in. I'm going to have a good workout and it's going to be nice. If you're someone who wakes up and is like, it's Monday, I hate Mondays, it's the worst day of the week, you're surefire way to have a really crappy Monday.
Yep.
It's all about how you look at it. I started treating my Mondays like a Friday without the anticipation of the weekend because I still have 4 more days. But it just changes everything. So like if you're gonna sit there and be negative, you're gonna have a negative experience in life.
Yep.
We talked about this last week with like your rose-colored glasses.
Mhm.
But also deeply impacts your peace, like how you are interacting with the world around you and how you're thinking about the world around you is going to directly impact your experience with it.
Mhm. And that's not to say that you can't have bad days. And I think there are times where you don't want to talk to people about what you're going through, or you feel like it would be better not to, and that's fine. But if you are having a bad day, like being able to turn to the right people can benefit helping your peace. Like if like my friend is having a bad day and she comes to me, that's gonna benefit me too because I'm going to be able to help her, and then I'll feel better knowing she feels better, and she'll feel better sharing this and getting some, hopefully getting some help from it. But then the reverse of that is that if it's a friend where you're giving 100% and getting nothing in return and they're just constantly coming at you with all this negativity, that's where your peace is not being protected. Which was another one I had, was like to be aware of how you feel around people. And like you said, Susan, like your circle has really changed since you've started thinking about this. And you might decide that you have to cut out some people because of the way they make you feel, or the way that they're not adding to your life, and you feel like there's more harm than good in the relationship.
Yeah. And I think as you get older, you have more responsibilities and more things going on, and things change. And your time becomes so important and valuable. You can't waste it on people that are sucking the life out of you. Like, there's not enough time in the day for
Yep.
that whatsoever.
Another one I had, just simply blocking. And
Yes.
simply blocking. And
Yes.
I
Love
haven't
that.
a ton of blocking recently, but I am a huge, huge fan of the mute feature on
Yes.
I think all social media platforms have it. Maybe not TikTok actually, but I know for a fact because I use it that Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram all have a mute feature. I mute if you don't give me joy, I'm muting you on, so like I don't want to see it. And it's not to be rude, it's not anything against these other people, but it's like my social media feed is for me. I'm not looking at someone's pictures for their benefit. It's like, do I want to see theirs or do I not? Mute, like move on. Because if it's, I don't want to open my feed and have it bring me down because I don't want to compare myself. I don't want to feel bad about myself. If your feed, if your content is going to make me feel anything other than positive, I'm muting you. And that's fine because you post it for your reason and you enjoy it, I hope. And if I'm not enjoying it, why should I have to see it?
I saw someone, it was a creator, I don't remember who it was, but she was like, treat your Instagram like your vision board. And it's not for anyone else, it's for you. And I was like, that is a beautiful thing. Like, I
Yep.
don't even really post, like on my personal Instagram, I barely post anymore. But I was like, that is so true. And you don't, I remember years ago, I think I was still in high school, and my oldest sister, who's not really on social media, she was like, why do you post? Like, why do you post? And I was like, I don't know, because it's fun. And she's like, no, seriously, like think about it. Like, why do you post? And I was like, well, I guess likes. And she's like, but what does that mean? And she, granted, I was like 16 and thinking like, I need to get 100 likes on this photo, or I'm deleting it.
Yep.
And she's thinking bigger picture things like what are you doing? That's always, that conversation has always stuck with me because it's like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? Am I doing this to show off? Like, who am I trying to impress on freaking Instagram?
Hmm.
The only people I have on Instagram are people I like went to high school with.
Hmm.
They know what I'm doing because we live in the same town, most of us. Like, but it's just interesting, like just reflecting on why you're doing something or what you're doing. And I love the mute feature. I need it to save some of the relationships that I need in my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like I said earlier, like you're going to have people in your life that you're stuck with for whatever reason it
What?
is in your life. Yes, for, yeah, what if for life, for whatever reasons. And if unfriending them is something that's going to cause more drama in your life than it's worth, just mute. No one has to know. No one will ever know. But you don't have to deal with it. You don't have to put yourself through that. And like I totally went through that with social media and like posting for the reaction I would get from other people. And I did talk about this on a blog. I don't even remember which one anymore, but I had like a huge section about that I stopped posting for a while to really break the habit of needing the validation from other people. And then when I did start posting again, I removed the like feature, which is another feature I love. So you don't see the like count. So I don't even see the like count. And so you're just posting for what you want. Like, I like this picture. That's all I need to know.
We got Instagram when we were in middle school.
Yep.
The world got Instagram when we were in middle school, I guess is a better way of putting it. So like we grew up like with this foundation that like likes are the end all be all. And then once TikTok became a thing, then it was like, or whatever it was, Vine back in the day, then it was followers and views. And especially like with my account blowing up last year, like followers were really important to me because I was like, oh my gosh, like this is it. And even when we started our business, followers was like the main goal that we like trajected and followed.
Mhm.
And now I don't remember the last time we had a conversation about followers because it's about the quantity, not the the quality, not the quantity. And we're just out here building a community. Like we are happy that we have a single person here, let alone if it grows and we have millions and like amazing, the more the merrier. But it's not something like at the end of the day, the numbers don't matter. We had our entire account with 40,000 people deleted overnight. And guess what? The sun still rose and we were fine. We were pissed, but we were
Yep.
fine. Like, and I think that's really that. Imagine if we would have lost that account in December. We would have both had mental breakdowns.
Yeah.
Like we would have been, that would have been it. We would have self-destructed.
Mhm.
But we lost it in May and we were able to just step back and be like, we can do it again. We'll
Yep.
build our community again. Like we don't need the number does not matter. That
Yep.
goes for everything.
And I think that's a huge part of protecting your peace is realizing that any validation that matters is going to be validation that comes from within. And I think that's kind of a full circle moment because your forgiveness was the first point you brought up. And that all goes back to finding like it's all internal and then the rest kind of falls into place. Or in your case, it was you had to do the outside work first for the internal work to then be able to be handled.
Yeah, 100%. And that goes to body image, your weight, your height. Like literally not I hate math anyway, so like I stand by this firmly, but numbers do not matter.
Mhm.
Like I just that's something I didn't understand or like accept
Mhm.
until this last year.
Yeah.
My last thing I have is owning your power, and you get to choose what and who bothers you.
Mhm.
My husband and I have a lot of conversations because, especially when it comes to me, he gets more upset. I think he gets more upset than I do in most situations because he's like, I just want to defend you, or I just want to like tell these people off. And I'm like, why are you letting it bother you?
Mhm.
I'm choosing to not let it bother me.
Yeah.
And just understanding that you have that power. And don't get me wrong, you're allowed to be upset about stuff.
Mhm.
And that you choose to be upset about that and to feel it. And then you can choose to let it go after once you're done feeling the things.
Mhm. That's huge.
Mm.
Yeah. And that was something that I definitely had to learn too was learning to let go what is able to be let go. Like you said, there are going to be things where it's like stand up for yourself and that there's such a fine line between letting things go and still standing up for yourself because you do not want to let people learn that they can walk over you. That is like the number one thing. Like stand up for yourself to the point where people know you will not be messed with, but then still allow yourself to let whatever you consider the little things to be, let them go and allow yourself to not hold on to all of that feelings, whatever, like if it's negativity, if it's toxicity, if it's anger, hate, whatever, like don't allow yourself to hold on to it unless it's like I think you kind of need to decide what that scale looks like for you, like what's going to be important enough where it's worth your energy. And it's never about the other person. It's like, is it worth putting yourself through it to tackle whatever it may be, or is it better for you to just begin to heal and let it put to rest?
And that's establishing clear non-negotiables and boundaries for yourself.
Which is
That really,
how you protect your peace, literally.
yes,
Whatever your
it's the
boundaries
road.
are like, we've talked about our boundaries throughout this whole last 30 minutes, but yeah, number one, establishing your boundaries is the way to protect your peace.
100%. So since we're talking about favorites, what's your favorite for the week?
My favorite of the week is, it's actually what I have right here. I've been a beverage girl recently, if I haven't always been. I think new beverages. I've been finding a lot of new fun beverages for myself. But my Nutella latte, which is what this is, I just brew a shot of espresso over like a spoonful of Nutella, and then I put some like around the edge too. And I mean, it's like chocolate milk. It's so good, but it's like a sugary caffeine boost for, I never have it in the morning for some reason. It's always like my afternoon pick me up. But it's either this or I've really been liking a Coke with ice and a lemon. So good. I did that for the first time in London because, like, I guess lime isn't as big of a thing. So they do lemon with their Coke. And now I'm like hooked on it. It's so good. It's so refreshing.
I don't like bubbles, or else I might support that. Never been a carbonation girl, never will be. But I like your protein coconut powder. You have been making some cool things with that, and I
Yep.
really like them.
That was almost my favorite of the week, but I've only done it once so far, so I didn't know if I had done it enough for it to be a favorite, but maybe next week.
Okay. My favorite for this week is actually Dream Life Loading. I like kind of looked around my house and I was like, what have I been using a lot? And I was like, honestly, the thing I think about most is Dream Life Loading. Like we had a really crazy breakthrough 3 weeks ago now. And it could have been the breaking point or the breakthrough, and we chose to break through. And it's just so exciting. Like what we have coming for you guys actually makes sense now, and it is so good. And we put so much time and energy and effort into it. And so Dream Life Floating is just my favorite this week.
And I think my number one favorite is the product that you know what I'm talking about, but I didn't want to say it yet. So I was like, I'll save it. It's something we both use. That's like the number one thing is like we've now figured out how to take how we've made our dream lives and allow other people to do the same, which has really been our first
Yeah.
full circle moment.
You're gonna, this is a good tease. You're gonna have a tangible tool
Mhm.
that is sums up our podcast. Like our podcast, we are now turning it into tools that you can physically use. We'll leave it at that till next week.
So exciting.
What's your mantra?
So I don't have a mantra this week. I have a song, and it is Crazy Dreams by Carrie Underwood. Do you know that song?
I do.
I love that song. And our dreams are coming true. And it's so, yeah, that song is my mantra of the week.
I love that. That's very sweet. So my mantra of the week is she wore a smile like a loaded gun. And that's from Atticus from To Kill a Mockingbird. And I remember my mom saying, specifically with like mean girls growing up, she was like, just smile at them. Like, Susan, just smile at them. Nothing's going to piss them off more than just smiling at them and being okay. And that still serves true because the happier and more content and peaceful and protected that you are, the less that they can infiltrate, and then the more frustrated they are. And I'm not saying you should be happy out of spite,
Mhm.
a little bit, but not a lot. I'm just saying it works wonders. And if you can continue, let's say you have someone at work that drives you up a wall and you guys butt heads all the time, and you can go in there and you can be happy and be positive and still be kind to that person. And you're totally fine inside because you've protected your peace, you have your boundaries and your non-negotiables, and you being happy, you literally just existing and being happy might drive them up a wall.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's right, but it might give you a little bit of satisfaction.
And in a way, acting happy, you're going to then feel that happiness. So
Yep.
it's a good way to
100%.
like trick yourself. But yeah, one of my favorite teachers ever told me, I remember it so specifically, she was like, Skye, you just need to kill him with kindness. And I will
Mhm.
never, ever, ever forget that. And it's true. It's really true.
You know the drill, guys. Like and subscribe. We'll be back next week.
Thank you for watching.